Hi, happy Wednesday. Back again, coming at you live from our nation's capital in Ottawa. This is David Krayden with Stand on Guard. When we come back, we got lots to talk about what happened yesterday. Carney said some, shall we say, interesting things.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station and subscribe. Really appreciate it. We're heading past 55,000, on the way to 100,000. That's my objective by the end of the year. Maybe we can do it. I think we can. But thanks for watching today. Want to share this with you before I get into anything else. This is incredible. From the food professor. Breaking massive cricket processing facility in London, Ontario, partially subsidized by Ottawa, now under receivership, according to multiple sources. I didn't even know we had such a thing. In London, Ontario? This is WEF. This is globalism. You will eat insects. You will own nothing and be happy. So we're headed with Mark Carney, but you'd never know what to listen to him because he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. And let's listen again to Mark Carney is asked, are you poaching NDP members? Now listen to this.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. Gillian Piper with Global News. Interim NDP leader Don Davies told Global News that your government was reaching out and calling NDP individuals about trying to poach them to join your party. Are you trying to poach NDP MPs to join the Liberals?
Look, as I said a moment ago, we have a clear mandate. We'll work towards that clear mandate. We're always interested in working with parliamentarians from any of the opposition parties to support that mandate. Obviously, those discussions will intensify as Parliament returns in the course of the next, well, it's less than 2 weeks. So clear mandate, focus on those. Speech from the throne will be quite clear in terms of our priorities. We'll work with Parliament.
Okay, so what did he say there? He didn't deny it. In fact, he kind of affirmed it by saying, yes, we're talking to multiple MPs, multiple parties. Obviously, he's talking to the NDP. Probably not. It's probably the House leader or the government whip who's making the phone calls. So Mark Carney can plausibly deny he knows anything about it. I didn't order that. And because in an interview with Vasi Kapalos yesterday, he quietly denied it. Nope, not me, but somebody else might be doing it. But listen to the rest of this question, because it's insane to me to appoint the former mayor of Vancouver as the housing minister, when, as this reporter points out, the price of housing doubled while he was mayor.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, when Gregor Robertson was Vancouver mayor, the price of buying a house increased by 179% in one of the most expensive markets in Canada. Why do you think someone with this track record should oversee the housing file? Is this a signal from you that you don't think housing prices should go down?
You would be very hard-pressed to make that conclusion from everything I've said and what our priorities are. We have a strong view on housing, a very clear policy, a policy developed with a number of members of the team, including with Mr. Robertson, and I'm thrilled that he is in the new role because he brings the type of experience that we need to tackle some aspects of this problem. One of them is how the federal government can help get municipal costs and municipal regulation costs down and regulation out of the way so that more houses can be built. Ultimately, a housing crisis, and it is a crisis, is ultimately solved by supply. We can do things to help with affordability at the start, which is why we have the GST cut, but ultimately it's a question of supply. And as I think you know, Julie, we have very aggressive objectives on supply, the doubling of the building of supply across Canada. We're going to have to change how we build. And a lot of that expertise, it's not exclusively, but a lot of it is actually been developed in British Columbia. Minister Robertson is very familiar with it. We're going to incorporate that, but in a pan-Canadian strategy to really drive this. Thank you.
So Gregor Robertson is so familiar with this technology. For some reason, he wasn't able to utilize it while he was mayor of Vancouver. But let's listen to Carney deny that he's poaching NDP MPs. And interestingly enough, he gets a real zinger of a question from Capellas here about Donald Trump. And clearly, Carney was not expecting it.
Any conversations with anyone from any party about crossing over to help form a majority? When you called Donald Trump transform.
So he said, no, very quietly. So that flies directly into what he was saying earlier. But here's the question. Here, I'm going to back it up a bit.
When you called Donald Trump transformative, did you mean transformative in a good or bad way?
Yin and yang. There's both.
There's both?
I said what I said. He is. What matters for Canadians is that the relationship with the U.S. has changed. I've been clear about that. Clear about that for months. I think others were very slow to recognize that. I think it's now increasingly understood. Secondly, that it has bigger ramifications than just the U.S. The way the global economy is working is changing. We need to change. Working with President Trump, working with his team as possible, sovereign nation to sovereign nation, that's what I'm pursuing.
Do you plan to renegotiate USMCA? Can you trust him as a partner?
The sequencing, we'll see about the sequencing. I think the revealed preference of the U.S. is working on some of these sectoral aspects before broader trade deals. It is an advantage to us that USMCA exists. It is not right that it's being violated, but it is still an advantage that it exists, and we intend to make the most of our advantages in these negotiations.
Do you trust him?
I will work with him and negotiate with him, yeah.
But do you trust him?
Look, my answer is my answer.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Prime Minister, I appreciate it very much.
I think he acted like he trusted Donald Trump when he went to visit him in Washington, wouldn't you say? But do we trust Mark Carney? That's the question in front of us right now. Can we trust Mark Carney? Because clearly he's doing something behind our backs with the NDP. And here's a report on that.
3 seats short of forming a majority. Neithu, the newly minted NDP interim leader, says the Liberals have come knocking to try and poach NDP MPs.
I do know that there's been certain calls made by Liberals. I would probably describe them more as feelers that have been put out.
But Don Davies believes none of the 7 elected New Democrats will cross the floor to the Liberals.
Our caucus, NDP caucus colleagues, have committed to being strong, united New Democrats.
We asked the Prime Minister's office if they're trying to pick off any NDP MPs, but they had no comment. While calls like these are likely taking place, Davies and Carney have yet to speak. But when they do, Davies said his first focus will be asking Carney to give the NDP official party status in Parliament, which they lost after failing to get 12 MPs elected. Status would give the NDP regular speaking slots during question period, seats on committees, and money to hire additional staff. Now, one thing both Davies and Carney are not keen on, Neithu, signing a formal governing pact like the supply and confidence deal that was previously signed under Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh.
All right.
So clearly there's something going on here. By the way, I encourage you to share this broadcast with your friends and family. It's getting really destroyed this morning. Don't know why. Anyway, thanks for all your support anyway. And Mark Carney, I really think in this interview was actually questioned with some tough questions, because it's unusual for Carney to have to answer anything except the time of day. But here he is talking about the Mark Carney of the book Values, and the Mark Carney of the campaign, and the Mark Carney who uses conservative language but doesn't really mean it.
If I'm accurately representing the point of view from people whose livelihood depends on the conventional energy sector, it's not that they're asking you like, that's it, that's the be all end all. It's that they want to know where conventional energy fits into your ambitions. And it's not just because, if I may, not just because of the record of the previous government, it's because of you yourself, your book Values, for example, which extensively talks about a reorientation of the market around the climate imperative. I think Canadians had been asking throughout the campaign, and now
it not only talks about the climate imperative, Carney says, and I have said this repeatedly, but it's in the book, his guiding political figures, the political figures he looks to for inspiration, are Karl Marx and Vladimir Lenin. Now, how does somebody who's essentially calling himself a Marxist-Leninist suddenly say, oh, I wasn't serious about any of that?
now, like, is this Prime Minister Mark Carney of values, or is it the Prime Minister of the campaign? Like, are you going to build that pipeline if the consensus exists?
First off, I've said repeatedly yes, first point. Secondly, that because I understand the need for that consensus, I'm a Prime Minister who can help create that consensus. You can't create a consensus on your own, but you have to drive processes that bring provinces along, bring the private sector in. Remember, I've got extensive experience. This is not just a concept to me. I have been involved in major energy projects for over 3 decades in the private sector. So I've got that experience, bringing the provinces, working with Indigenous partners, putting in place, as we have, billions of dollars of financing for those Indigenous partners, bringing in somebody like Tim Hodgson, who, when he was CEO of Hydro One, was one of the only major corporations to have a major Indigenous partnership program that actually worked. So we're bringing the components in. We have to deliver. Let me make another point, because I appreciate that you've read my book very carefully. At the core of the way I talk about the energy transition is the future of, including about Canada being an energy superpower, is the future is low risk. Canada's low risk is a business investment place. Low cost. We're getting the costs down, including in the oil sands. The marginal production is low cost, and low carbon. All three of those come together. We have the ingredients of all that. Let's get together and move on it. And it takes more than just one pipeline in order to accomplish.
And I do understand that point, but I think, like, in your book, multiple occasions, for example, you talk about the merits of a carbon tax. And now we have a different Prime Minister, Mark Carney, who says, the first thing I did in this very room was get rid of the carbon tax.
Got rid of the consumer carbon tax,
correct,
which is different than
the industrial side, but it's still a portion of the carbon tax scheme that existed in this country.
How much of the resources did that consumer, how much of the emission reduction did that consumer
9%.
Carbon tax? Yeah, well, it's actually 6, but if you extrapolate it out to 2030,
if it went as far as it was supposed to go, it's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's not much.
Now, clearly, he just admitted the consumer carbon tax did virtually nothing. It did nothing except to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 6%. I think that's actually high, because Canada produces about 1.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions, as I've never tired of saying. So it reduced 1.5% by 6% and created all kinds of economic dislocation. And no, he hasn't canceled the carbon tax, because Parliament has not been sitting. Parliament has not resumed since January. So you have to create legislation to repeal the carbon tax. All he's done is drop it. He can still get us with the carbon tax. And I'm not convinced he won't. But here's more of Mark Carney running away from questions, because there are 2 Mark Carneys. There's the Mark Carney who has been Mark Carney until January, when he started running for the Liberal leadership. This is the globalist. This is the China first Mark Carney. This is the guy who wants to impose net zero and cancel pipelines. Here he is, once again, tap dancing around the question of, will you repeal Bill C-69, which banned pipelines in Canada?
Who didn't vote for your party are worried about, right? They are worried that it is the Mark Carney of values. It is the Justin Trudeau government. And the reason I ask about that is against that backdrop, right? You are still saying you're going to keep C-69 in place. You are going to keep the emissions cap in place. They view
Did you see that look on his face? That he doesn't like that question. He considers that an impertinent question. Because no, he did not say he will repeal C-69. And his answer here is completely
that as
unsatisfactory.
evidence of something. They view that, pardon me, as evidence of something that runs counter to what you're saying right now.
What I said very clear. Look, I am a pragmatist. I go over and over on this, and I really am. I'm interested in results. So the point of building a pipeline, the point of building out carbon capture is to get the results, to get get those barrels to the market, to get carbon down. You can do both. We have the capability to do more. And we have the capabilities financially, from a technological perspective, in terms of the companies. Federal government can play a role. The Alberta, province of Alberta, obviously other provinces, Indigenous people have to come along for almost all of these projects in order for them to actually work.
Did not answer the question. He has no intention of answering the question. I don't believe he's going to cancel Bill C-69 or repeal C-69, which bans pipelines and oil tankers off the coast. So either you believe what Mark Carney's saying today, or everything about Mark Carney's past has been a horrible lie. He's never been that person. He calls himself a pragmatist. He's never acted like a pragmatist. And he certainly never acted or talked like a conservative prior to his running for the Liberal leadership. The world changed on that day, and he suddenly started talking in a whole different way. And this is what Mark Carney is all about. Now, there's a lot of people out there right now saying, well, give Mark Carney a chance. Give Mark Carney a chance. Mark Carney is the most ideologically left prime minister we've ever had. He's even worse than Justin Trudeau. He is going to be catastrophic for this country because he has a hidden agenda. That's what the Liberals always say about the Conservatives. They have a hidden agenda. What they really want to do is ban abortion. And of course, that works every time. And this time around, the Liberals didn't even have to go there because they had Donald Trump as the enemy. And here he is, again, as we heard earlier. He's asked, why did you call Donald Trump a transformational president? Well, transformational, good or bad? Well, usually it's a positive term. When you call somebody transformational, that usually means you approve of what they're doing. Mark Carney didn't seem to think he can have it both ways. It's yin and yang. Mark Carney's saying, I want it both ways. I want to disapprove Donald Trump and approve Donald Trump when I'm in his presence. And that, of course, is what he always does. Now, I got a special treat for you here, because we showed you the brief clip yesterday of the incident with Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, and Freddie Merz. Not the one from I Love Lucy. No, Friedrich Merz. He's the Chancellor of Germany now. And the three of them were apparently, and quite obviously, caught with cocaine. And I would assume if you have cocaine in the room, you're probably using it. But it was so obvious what was going on. And the fallout has been incredible from this incident. And why has it been incredible? I think because people are saying, is that what we've come to? Our leaders get around the table, snort cocaine, and try to represent us. Now, if this had been an official meeting and there was a bottle of booze on the table, people would say, maybe you guys shouldn't be drinking while you're negotiating, while you're in talks. Maybe that's not wise. Maybe that's not prudent. But of course, these guys are not wise or prudent. And cocaine, this is really, really enjoyable. Enjoy this, sir.
Macron wouldn't be looking so sheepish at covering it up. It would just be a bloody tissue and it would be left on the desk. I spoke to somebody who's in French intelligence, right? And he was the one who sent it to me in the first place. And I said, this can't be And he said, well, this is the statement that's been put out. This is what's being said. And then he just said, that's about an hour past. And then he replied to me going, this looks legit.
Okay.
Now, yeah, what's that little white line, powdered line on the table? The telltale sign. It can't get more obvious than that.
So, we've got to talk about the Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Frédéric Merz cocaine video. What do you make of this? Because it really has divided the right. Some people say, oh, you're just buying into pro-Russian propaganda if you take this at all seriously. Others saying, actually, there's a lot of evidence over the past few years that our elite class, including the likes of Prince Harry, are very much driven by drug use. So let's take this in now with Alex Phillips of That's What She Said and a former Brexit Party MEP. Here is the full video that got the world talking, and you can see here.
It's a long walk. I'll be back in Poland.
We're all cooked up and laughing.
My bathroom, huh? Yeah. It's literally. We came through Germany, and then we made it to France. Bedroom, and we got through the
Oh shit! There's the Coke I left.
Yeah.
That, of course, is Jimmy Dore. And Jimmy is coming to Ottawa on June the 1st. I'm hoping to get Jimmy on the show to talk about his appearance here. And I will be at the event on June the 1st to interview Jimmy Dore. He is a favorite of a lot of YouTubers because he's funny. This is a guy who was a Democrat all his life and just fell out with the party during the COVID pandemic because of lockdowns, because of forced mandates, because of everything that happened during that. And I still have to be very careful how I describe everything that happened during that time. But Jimmy is coming to Ottawa and hope to do a show with him.
Did you hear about this?
Just now.
So
have you heard this?
See the bag of white. So you see the bag of white powder right there?
Well, not at first. I didn't. At first, I didn't.
So, and the thing that's sus is that they just came back from Kiev.
Oh,
right, home.
Yeah,
right. It's like Tony Montana's
Kiev
house.
Some coke off.
Yeah. Well, looks like the coke is on you. Am I right? Ha ha. Nothing kills cocaine-fueled sex party boner like realizing you're on video camera the entire time. And this is the good Ukrainian coke.
Yeah.
So here, let's watch. So here they are. The coke is there. And this guy gets worried. Oh my God, I got my Coke spoon out. And so he immediately. So that's what. Oops. So he tries to cover up the Coke spoon, and then he just.
Oh, come on.
And then he grabs it. This is alleged, by the way.
Oh, there should be like a rock soundtrack behind this.
So if that really was, so they're trying to say that was just a Kleenex. Why would you hide it like it's Coke? Why would you do that like that? What do you think their code names for Coke are, by the way? Good news, we had a visit from King Charles.
That was a good one, King Charles.
Hey, you got any more of that Ukrainian recruiting power? Did anyone find Hunter Biden's laptop, if you know what I mean?
I'm looking for Hunter's laptop.
I have an idea, Kurt. Let's make a compilation of the best bullshit excuses for why this isn't a baggie of blow on the table. Okay. So here, Newsweek says Emmanuel Macron's cocaine claims erupt after Kiev meeting.
Oh, like his nose into a Kleenex the next morning after that Coke bit?
Authorities in France and Germany have responded to viral images pushing would have been described as a conspiracy theory. You know, like the conspiracy theory that the COVID virus was created in a lab as a bioweapon. You mean like that kind of crazy conspiracy theory, or the crazy conspiracy theory that there were FBI plants in the crowd on January 6th and they were overcharging them as a political process? You mean that kind of crazy? What kind of crazy conspiracy you think?
No, they go, it has been described. Has been by who?
By who?
You?
By you.
So just say we're saying it's a conspiracy theory. Oh, I heard. You know, remember they hate Trump for going. People are saying.
So that's what they're doing. Instead of Newsweek saying, and they are trying to slough off the accusation as a conspiracy theory, right, which is how they should report it. They're saying it's been described as a conspiracy theory.
This article I describe as a conspiracy.
Yeah. Macron went to Kiev by train with UK Prime. That's also code for Coke. I'm going to Kiev by train.
I was thinking Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young on a train.
And
speaking of drugs, again, a couple of the big boys got caught, allegedly, with a little baggie of drugs. But is that really the story that's going on here? I'm sure you've seen by now. If you have an X account, you've definitely seen. And if you don't have an X account, you've still probably seen Macron just squirreling away the little bag of whiteness on his table and all that stuff that's been taken over the internet, and everyone's making funny memes and AI videos of them dancing and whatever else. And yeah, he grabs his little bag and sleuths it away. But like, let's just pump the brakes for a second here, guys. It might be a tissue, like it really might be a tissue, and like maybe it's a bag of drugs, like a really big bag of drugs, like just so like that's a lot of drugs, and just on the like maybe, but regardless, even if it's a bag of drugs or it's a tissue, you can argue about that all day long, and yeah, it's a funny scandal, whatever. But that's Emmanuel Macron, and if you don't recall, he's married to a dude. And in case
that's the other unsaid thing about Emmanuel Macron. So no, we can't prove it. We have to say it's alleged, as Jimmy Dore said, but there's something that smells about that. When you look that guilty, you're not hiding a Kleenex. I mean, let's face it. And when I come back, I want to talk about Donald Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia. And let's put on the old store ad. Yeah, please visit the store. Some great material there. Not many people visiting the station today, but Donald Trump's trip to Saudi Arabia. Why is it significant? Well, it's not just taking the sanctions off Syria. It's the fact that he finally recommitted himself to not getting involved in foreign wars. This is one of the reasons Donald Trump won the election, because so many people are fed up with the neocon strategy of getting the U.S. involved in every foreign conflict possible. It costs a lot of money, and you never get out of these conflicts. You're there for decades sometimes, or at least a decade. And as I said, I've served with NATO forces, and I do think NATO's time is over. I think it's past its due date, and I think we need to have some kind of peace in this world, and we have to stop demonizing Russia. We need to end the war in Ukraine, and we do not need to attack Iran. So I think Donald Trump sent out that clear signal in Saudi Arabia yesterday that he's recommitted himself I don't want to call it isolationism, but America first. So America is not getting involved in every foreign war. And interesting that he said this. I know when I had Colonel Douglas McGregor on the show just recently, we were talking about how Donald Trump sometimes echoes the sentiments of the last person he talked to. And that might be the case here. I hope and pray it's not, that he wasn't talking to somebody who said, Donald, what happened to you? You used to be anti-war. Now you're talking about giving more aid to Ukraine or getting involved in the Middle East war. So I hope that wasn't the case. But it's hopeful. The other news I have for you, I just wrote a column for Human Events. But did you know Elon Musk is leaving the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE? For some reason, I hadn't heard that until yesterday. I was asked to write a column for Human Events on Russell Vought, who is the incoming director of DOGE. And I have to confess, I knew very little about Vought. So I did some research. I was up at 5 this morning doing some research on this guy. And he's fantastic. He's fantastic on all the issues. And I think he's even more appropriate for DOGE than Elon Musk. Because they needed Elon Musk to get the organization off the ground. Because Elon obviously is very media savvy. He knows how to attract attention, the chainsaws and stuff like that. But Vought, who is the chief of the Office of Management in budget right now for the Trump administration, he's been involved in politics for a long time. He's no stranger to this. He knows these issues. He knows where the waste is. And I think this is going to be what brings back the general consensus that Donald Trump is on the right track. Because this guy is so conservative on all of the issues, not just fiscal, but social. And he's a real cultural warrior or culture warrior. And I think this is a very wise decision because it allows Donald Trump to really appeal to the base that is a little divided over tariffs. Even in the U.S., conservatives are divided over tariffs. Conservatives don't understand why Donald Trump supported Mark Carney in the federal election. I think I might understand it, but I don't want to think that's why. But clearly, supporting Mark Carney does not appear to be in the national interest of the United States and completely contrary to what Donald Trump believes in ideologically. So it was very disturbing. And people were beginning to wonder, are you going to get the U.S. entangled in more foreign wars? It appears he's not. But that re-declaration yesterday, alongside the decision to put Russell Vought in charge of DOGE, I think is going to totally galvanize, excite, and bring together the small c conservative libertarian base in the United States that supports Donald Trump. And that's why I always said, look, I love what Donald Trump's doing. I don't agree with him on this tariff issue. I don't agree with him on supporting Mark Carney. But what he's doing in terms of slashing government spending, what he's doing in terms of rolling back diversity, equity, and inclusion policies across the board, what he's doing to reduce the size of government and put power back into individuals, to reduce taxes, to reduce regulations, that I agree with. So I'm hoping he's going to see the light on tariffs as well. This has all been a bargaining chip. And I'm looking forward to seeing DOGE continue to do its good work. Do you think for a minute, though, that Mark Carney would ever consider having that sort of agency in Canada? Not for a minute. And I tell you, Pierre Poilievre should have been out there every day during that campaign telling Canadians that that's what he would do. And not just saying we're going to reduce the size of the bureaucracy by attrition, because it's bloated bureaucracy. Thank you, Trudeau. You increased the size of the government workers to the largest in its history. I think sometimes just to mask the employment figures or the unemployment figures. So that's what we need in Canada. Anyway, hope we see more of you tomorrow. We didn't see many of you today, but thank you for those of you who did watch. God bless this country. Godspeed to all of you. This has been David Krayden, live from Ottawa.